Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Grand Traverse. I'm Pam Hendrick. I'm a member of the Sunday Services Committee. I want to welcome all of you who are joining us via live stream and all of you who are joining us here in our sanctuary. And for those of you in the sanctuary, just a gentle reminder to please silence your electronic devices. And do we have any visitors here today who'd like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Debbie. I was here last week for the first time. That's nice.
Welcome back, Debbie. That's just great. Good. And please stay after the service today so we can get to know you better. And actually today, we have another visitor? Oh, please.
I'm Eric, and this is Savannah. We're here for the first time.
Oh, Eric and Savannah, welcome. You are so welcome. Yeah, and after the service today, we're actually having a soup lunch with lots of choices of homemade soups. So please stay and join us for that. We'd love to get to know you better, and we welcome you whoever you are and from wherever you come. And this is, especially today with all of our costumes, this is, in every sense of the word, this is a come as you are congregation. Sharing our joys and concerns with our beloved community helps us stay connected in celebration and in care. And if you have a joy or concern that you would like to have read in the service later by Reverend Alex, you can write it in the book over there, and it will be read later in the service. And if you have a joy or a concern that's too tender to share, you can please talk to a member of our caring committee. And Joni is here today, if you could raise your hand. So please find her if you would like to share. Today's service will focus on how the ancient Celtic tradition of Samhain reminds us that those who have passed beyond the veil are with us still. Now enjoy our opening song, Samhain Night, written by Jenna Green and led by Renee Russell.
So I'm going to invite everyone to sing the chorus with me, so we'll start with that. This is a welcoming song into the wonderful evening of Samhain. So it goes. And the words are behind me here. Light the sacred fires, hold each other tight. Welcome now the spirits of a Samhain night. Light the sacred fires, hold each other tight. Welcome now the spirits of a Samhain night. The veil between the other world and our plane of mortal thins to welcome the ancient ones. The earth becomes their portal. Let not your heart be heavy, let not your head be light. Keep aware and quench your fears on the Samhain night. Light the sacred fires, hold each other tight. Welcome now the spirits of old Samhain night. Light the sacred fires, hold each other tight. Welcome now the spirits of old Samhain night. Jack-o'-lantern circle to protect you from your fears as we celebrate the harvest and the Celtic New Year. Come with me into the woods, deep in a sacred grove, and dance with me for life and love as the elements unfold. Light the sacred fires, hold each other tight. Welcome now the spirits of old Samhain night. Light the sacred fires, hold each other tight. Welcome now the spirits of old Samhain night. We honor all our ancestors and loved ones who have passed. We keep them in our memory with love that always lasts. Tonight they pass the bridge of swords to be with us again through the veil of the spirit world into the realm of man. Light the sacred fires, hold each other tight. Welcome now the spirits of old Samhain night. Light the sacred fires, hold each other tight. Welcome now the spirits of old Samhain night. ash and thorn. We build the sacred fire, we dance until the morn. The smoke, it rises higher, study close the shadows, study close the flame. A voice from long ago may whisper your name. Like the sacred fires, hold each other tight. Welcome now the spirits of Old Samhain night. Like the sacred fires, hold each other tight. Welcome now the spirits of Old Samhain night. Thank you.
Whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here this morning. I'm Reverend Alex. I'm the minister of this congregation, or Harry Potter, as the alter ego may be this morning. And I welcome you to this threshold time together as we celebrate Samhain and the thinning of the veil. From Samhain, we get many of our traditions of Halloween that include carving pumpkins and dressing up. And because I am so overjoyed to see so many other costumes this morning, I want to make sure that we say it, that however you are coming to be with us this morning, whether online or in person, whether you are dressed in your Sunday's best or as a monster or a ghoul, maybe even a superhero or two, no matter how you present yourself to the world or who it is that you are deep inside, no part of you needs to be left outside, and all of who you are, yes, especially our costumed friends, are welcomed and loved. And now, our opening words as we settle in for our time together. Gather we now into this space, this time when the wheel turns and the veil shatters. Gather we now to remember, to grieve, to prophesy, to complete our harvests before the long dark comes. Gather we now to tell the old stories and sing the old songs, to be as we always have been, the voice of our people eternal. Gather we now to celebrate that which was, that which is, and that which will be. Gather we now, as we always have done, united by story and bound by love. So come, let us worship together this morning. We light our chalice this Sunday alongside many other congregations and communities. Those of you at home online, we invite to also kindle your own flame as we hearken back to that flame and seed of eternity within all of us. We'll have Oliver here who will light our chalice as I read these words from the Reverend Florence Caplow. I should make a special note about the chalice that we are lighting today. My father actually made this out of metal for me as an ordination gift. And it's a special chalice that I reserve to burn only for special ceremonies and occasions, like today when we remember those who have passed on beyond the veil. And so here are our chalice lighting words. As we kindle this flame, we honor and remember those who have passed into mystery. Their brightness lives on in our vision. Their courage lives on in our commitments, and their love continues to bless the world through us. We'll also sound our singing bowl, our Buddhist singing bowl, to draw our attention and awareness to our breath and to this present moment as we gather together. And now Betsy will share with us our time for all ages.
Here. I promise I won't steal anybody's teeth. No? Come on up. Okay. Can you just sit right here, bud? You want to sit there? All right, so I have a question. How many of you have ever carved a face into a pumpkin? Let's see some hands. Yep. But did you ever wonder why we do that? Why do we carve faces into pumpkins? You know? Because Halloween. But why do we do that at Halloween? Well, to find out the answer, we're going to go a long time ago and across the ocean to the country of Ireland. For 1,000 years or longer, people in Ireland have been celebrating a holiday called Samhain. And Samhain was celebrated at the end of the fall, just before winter began. And the Celts, who were the people who were celebrating this holiday, believed that this was the time when spirits could cross over from the world of the dead into the world of the living. And so the Celts would dress in costumes to confuse the spirits, and they would go from house to house collecting food and drinks. Does this sound similar to something that we know? A holiday at the end of fall where we dress in costumes and go house to house collecting food? Yeah. So after a very long time, it has kind of morphed into what we now know as Halloween. So just like it is here in Michigan, it was dark in the evening in Ireland. And when the Celts were traveling house to house collecting food and drinks, they would need a lantern to light their way. And so they would carve faces into turnips or other root vegetables, put a candle inside, and what do we have? We have a lantern. And sometimes Celts would also put these outside of their houses to scare away those spirits that had come over from the world of the dead. So over hundreds of years, the traditions of Samhain have changed into the holiday of Halloween. And many people do still celebrate Samhain, but nowadays Halloween is more commonly celebrated. But wait. How many of you have visited a turnip patch in October to pick out a turnip, or a rutabaga as this is, to carve? Anybody picked out a turnip at a turnip patch to carve? No. So why is that? Why do we carve these pumpkins instead? Well, pumpkins were not grown in Ireland until very recently. And a few hundred years ago, many people from Ireland immigrated to the United States. And when they arrived here, they discovered that pumpkins are much easier to carve than turnips. And I can attest to that. This was not easy to carve. So that's why now we carve pumpkins on Halloween instead of turnips. But what about that name jack-o'-lantern? So there's a story. And the story is about a man named Stingy Jack. And stingy means you don't want to pay money for things. Stingy Jack invited the devil to have a drink with him. True to his name, Stingy Jack didn't want to pay for his drink, so he convinced the devil to turn himself into a coin that Jack could use to buy the drinks. But once the devil turned himself into a coin, Jack grabbed the coin, put it into his pocket next to a silver cross, which is a symbol that devils don't like. And that prevented the devil from changing back into his original form. He tricked him. Jack eventually freed the devil, but he made the devil promise that he would not bother Jack for 1 year, and that if Jack would die, he wouldn't have to join the devil in his fiery home. And the people who were telling this story believed that when you died, if you had a good life, you would go to a place called heaven, and if you had a bad life, you would go to a terrible place called hell. So 1 year later, the devil was back. This time, Jack tricked the devil into climbing a tree to pick a piece of fruit. While he was up in the tree, Jack carved the sign of the cross, again, devil doesn't like that symbol, into the tree's bark so that the devil could not come down until he promised Jack not to bother him for 10 more years. Before those 10 years were up, though, Jack died. The devil kept his promise and didn't let Jack into hell. But God refused to let Jack into heaven because that was for people who had led a good life. So, where was Jack going to go? He was doomed to wander the earth forever in eternal darkness, of course. But the devil took pity on Jack and gave him a lump of burning coal so that he had just a little bit of light. Jack carved out a turnip, stuck the coal inside, and created a lantern. And that is why we call him Jack of the Lantern, Jack-o'-lantern. The end. And that is just one story of many. It's the most common one, but as is true with so many things that are really old and that have come from different places, we're never quite exactly sure what the real origin of something is. But this is one description and one way we have to understand it. We are now going to go to the RE room. I'm so excited that we have so many friends here. And we are going to do some fun things with pumpkins.
Go in joy and go in peace to meet the day with open hearts in grace lies wonder. We will guide you, we will love you on your way.
Good morning. I want to introduce the membership committee. We have Jane Watts, Chris Walter, Rick Walter. Not present is John Hoffman, and I'm the chairman, Chris Lautz. And we have one person that would like to become a new member. So I'd like to also call Eddie Grimm to come up. And Eddie, you get to be down here. So we can talk about you over your head. I get that. So, let's see, and you brought your order of service. Excellent. Okay, so I have a bio that Eddie wrote that's also going to be published in the Beacon. But Eddie is a Native American of Miami, of Indiana, Cherokee, Scotch-Irish, and German descent. His family spent their summers in Mackinac City, and his entire life is intertwined with northern Michigan. Employment and schooling kept him in Indiana for most of his adult life. He returned to northern Michigan after he retired, and he has 5 children and 5 grandchildren. He attended Anderson University, earning his Bachelor of Arts in Sociology and Religion. He received his Master of Divinity degree from Anderson School of Theology and was ordained to the ministry in 1975 and served pastorates, in an independent fellowship and the United Methodist Church. For many years, he served as a spiritual leader in the Native American community. He also worked for and retired from General Motors. After retiring, he's worked as a home-based counselor with a risk youth group before retiring a second time. Among other things, he's past chairman of the American Indian Council, junior past vice chair of the executive board and chairman of the youth committee of the American Indian Center of Indiana, past president of Lions Club, founder and past co-director of Mekisiawasi.
That's close.
Okay. Youth Council. He was listed in the National Dean's List during his graduate work. He is very active in community volunteer activities and continues to do pulpit fill, weddings, funerals, and public speaking in the Traverse City area when called upon. He's been very active in the Traverse City LGBTQ community and served as chairman of the exploratory committee that led to the founding of the Polestar LGBTQ Community Center. I am real excited to have him as a member. Okay, so I'm passing the post to Rick.
As an introduction to this special time of welcoming new members, we share these words adapted and abbreviated from an unknown author. We, the current members of the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Grand Traverse, welcome you, Eddie, into our circle of love and commitment. May you find comfort here, for life often carries with it pain, so may you find joy and the shared gifts of love and life. May you be challenged here for questioning as a source of love and learning. May you add your voice to ours, finding harmony in the diversity we affirm. May you build on your faith here, a faith that sustains you during life's transitions. May you find your spiritual home here, creating with us a community that welcomes all. Above all, may you help us to create a better world, cultivating human wholeness and authentic interdependence.
And please turn to the insert in your order of service as new members and read the covenant together, followed by, we're going to do a congregational response at the end of this. This is a welcoming the new member by a reading by Manish Misha Marzetti. And you will please, if you don't mind, recite this with me as we read this. We enter this faith with a hope and possibility in our hearts, pledging to participate in and support the ministries of this congregation. We covenant to remain true to the spirit of love that flows through this church and guides us. We seek your welcome as we join in this faith. Thank you.
No, we welcome
Pardon me?
congregational response.
Oh, and the congregational response next, sorry. We welcome you as once we were welcomed ourselves. We seek to be open and inclusive, respecting your inherent dignity, your ideas, and your vision. In times when it is easy and in times when it is difficult. We seek to be supportive, not only when you reach out in courage to us, but also when you need to reach out to you. In return, we ask that you recognize our humanity. We will not always live up to our ideals, and when we fall short, we invite you to stay in relationship with us and help us more fully bring alive the spirit of love. We welcome you as an equal member of this congregation, of this faith, and of our shared spiritual journey. Welcome.
Welcome.
Very well. Wait a minute, Eddie, hold that line.
Thank you so much, Eddie. Here is your new member folder and a small gift for you. So happy.
Thanks for being here.
Now is the time, whoa, some feedback there. Okay. Now is the time to remind ourselves of what this congregation means to us and to our greater community, and what we can all do to contribute. As we pass the baskets here in the sanctuary, please be aware that they have two sides, one for sustaining the congregation and one for those in need in the greater community. And for those of you joining us remotely, here are the ways that you can express your much, much appreciated generosity. You can mail a check to the congregation. You can go to the UUCGT website or you can use your phone by downloading the Vanco mobile app. Your generosity is so very appreciated. As we accept your offerings, please enjoy our meditation music from Tchaikovsky's Seasons, October, performed by Barbara Young.
It is our practice as a religious community to set aside time in our service to name and honor the joys and concerns that mark our lives, those milestones and moments of our lived experiences. I'll be sharing a couple of those that have been offered up, excuse me. I'll be sharing a couple of the joys and concerns that have been offered up for us to hold on our hearts as we are gathered this morning. If you have a joy or a concern that's a bit too tender to share, I invite you to light a candle silently over to my right over here, to simply hold it as you are held in the love of this community, or to reach out to myself or to one of our congregational care team members. None of us is ever meant to travel life's journey alone. And so this is what has been offered up for us to hold on our hearts as we are gathered. Please hold in heart my sister and her family as they go through their miscarriage. From Mary Van Valen, my niece Erica turns 50 today, and her best gift is being released from Munson now that her seizures have been controlled. A joyful day for her and those who love her. We also hold on our hearts the people of Seoul, South Korea, as now the numbers rise above over 100 people who have died in the stampedes in Halloween celebrations that have occurred. And so we turn our thoughts to that part of the world that is deeply healing. And now let's hold a brief moment of silence for all of those joys and concerns that remain on our hearts. Dear all, please join in a spirit of remembrance for these beloved members who have died in the past year and those who have passed beyond the veil in our community. In this moment, we remember Robert A. Dean, Robert E. Doty, Roger J. Height, Richard A. Robb, Marjorie G. Rundle, Gerald A. F. Swaney. And now we pause for a moment to call to our minds those we have not named who are on our hearts, who we also remember in this time and season. I invite you to either whisper or speak their names into our space aloud or to hold them on our hearts. Brian. Carl. We have known the deaths of some really special saints and souls. We know that those who have died remain with us still. We notice them in the smiles of a stranger, in the laughter of a child. We see reminders of them almost everywhere, noticing the things they enjoyed in life, enjoying their favorite foods and drinks. Our ancestors, their memories are alive in our own hearts and continue to shape our living. And may we, the living, live our lives in celebration and honor of those who have passed beyond the veil. May we be their beating hearts, their helping hands, inspired to live our own lives full of goodness and love. And so we say, may it be so, and amen.
Remember me, though you have to say goodbye. Remember me, don't let it make you cry. For even if I'm far away, I'll hold you in my heart. I sing a secret song to you each night we are apart. Remember me, though I have to travel far. Remember me, when you hear a sad guitar and know a secret song to you. Each night we are apart. Remember me. Though I have to travel far, remember me. When you hear a sad guitar, and know that I'm with you, the only way that I can be, until you're in my arms again. Remember me.
Thank you for that, Renee. That was beautiful. Our reading this morning is written by the self-described pagan witch, spiritual teacher, and eco-feminist Starhawk. In this excerpt, Starhawk describes the fuller meaning of Samhain, or Halloween. Ghosts and goblins, witches on broomsticks, pumpkins, candy, and spider webs. It's that time of year again. Halloween, probably every child's favorite holiday, combining irresistible attractions of dressing up in costume and gorging on candy. But there's a deeper spiritual meaning that underlies the holiday for pagans and real witches, those who follow earth-based goddess traditions that predate Christianity. In Northern Europe, Samhain, the Celtic term for Halloween, was the time when the cattle were moved from the summer pastures to winter shelter. It was the end of the growing season, the end of harvest, a time of thanksgiving when the ancestors and spirits of the beloved dead would return home to share in the feast. Death did not sever one's connections with the community. People would leave offerings of food and drink for their loved ones and set out candles to light their way home. Those traditions gave us many of our present-day customs. Now we set out jack-o'-lanterns and give offerings of candy to children who are, after all, the ancestors returning in new forms. So Samhain is a time to remember and honor those who have died, to celebrate their lives and appreciate their gifts, to tell stories about them so their memories will not be lost. Samhain is also a time for deep spiritual work. At this time of year, we say, the veil is thin that divides the worlds, the seen from the unseen, the day-to-day from the mysteries. Halloween and our traditions are much misunderstood. This year, when you hand out candy or shepherd your children through the streets, we invite you to remember the deeper meaning of the holiday, that death is no barrier to love, and every ending brings a new beginning.
I'm going to start off this morning with something that really betrays my age. How many of you have ever seen the Disney movie Halloween Town? Are they still showing that on TV this time of year? Anyone? For those of you that actually haven't seen it, we're talking about one of the peak Halloween movies of the 90s. Like, it's a big deal. As you might imagine from its name, Halloween Town is almost this separate world and city where witches and werewolves, ghouls, and ghosts live all year round. It makes sense that they'd organize themselves into cities if they live separately, right? It's also Halloween in Halloween Town. with carved pumpkins, spooky decorations, and gaudy costumes, except they're not so much costumes as much as they really are who these beings are. And what's so special about Halloween Town is that just as in the legend of Halloween, with the veil between the worlds being at its thinnest, the residents and beings are able to come over to our side to visit. This is shown in the story of Marnie, who has just turned 13 and finds out from her grandmother, who visits every year on October 31st, that she's a witch and that she belongs to a family of witches. Pretty cool, huh? I'll spare you the plot if you still want to actually see this before Halloween tomorrow evening, but as a kid, there was a sense of mystery and just pure coolness about this alternate world. It made me wonder a lot whether a place like Halloween Town was even really possible, this whole separate place from ours beyond the veil. This mysteriousness and even spookiness of this dimension that we can't fully know. As separate or even fictional as this world is from ours, there are practices in Halloween Town not unlike our own. Like with our Time for All Ages about the story of the jack-o'-lantern and carving pumpkins, historically carving turnips, with Halloween decorations and costumes even getting candy from door to door, just as in our own legends around Halloween and its holiday ancestor, Samhain. The veil itself is at its thinnest, and beings and spirits, even our lost loved ones, are able to come over and visit. What's behind the lavish costumes and the spooky decor? What is at the root of our trick-or-treating or our binging of horror flicks this time of year? Halloween and Samhain have a history of challenging the natural powers that have dominion over our lives. Not only is Samhain rooted in challenging and subverting the social structures of its time, but it's rooted in subverting the power of death itself. Halloween, All Hallows Evening, is fundamentally about poking fun at death, warding off evil spirits, and yes, even getting up to a little bit of mischief here and there. While we practice it from a place of fun and trickery, its basic message was to question whether death itself does have the final say. Finding ways that we, in an uncertain, dangerous, and even unpredictable world, can explain or find comfort in the horrors and fears of our daily lives. The practice of Samhain, all these practices themselves have a subversive history as they developed among the Celts and those who were essentially under the power and dominion of the Roman Empire at the time. Seen as barbarians or even savages, the Celts maintained their practices of gathering around fires to tell stories and wearing these spooky, scary masks to laugh and ward off spirits and poke fun at death. They actually did these things as a way to resist the customs of Rome. Over time, the syncretism between the Celtic traditions with Christianity across the empire, these practices eventually shifted and took new form. The church itself even moved the original day of All Saints' Day from May 13th to October 31st to coincide and even capitalize on these Celtic traditions and practices. I don't know if you knew that before. And not before long, the traditions fused to where we have now Halloween celebrated the evening before All Saints' Day, known as All Hallows, All Saints Evening, just as the Celts gathered at their fires the evening before. And now it's also followed by All Saints and All Souls' Day, further co-opting these traditional Celtic traditions of Samhain and the turning of the new year and harvest. Trick-or-treating, too, has roots also in this subversive history, starting first with beggars who would go door to door, offering prayers for the souls of loved ones who were still in purgatory in exchange for a small amount of food. This practice eventually became customary with baking these small soul cakes. You can think of these as kind of like these shortbread biscuits that were given out. Halloween itself was a rare time when the cultural expectations shifted for one night of the year and allowed those at the margins of society to push back and even hold power themselves. All of a sudden, those who were the lowest rungs and had little power in society not only had the power to pray for the dead, but even to wear costumes and poke fun at those who actually were in power. This tradition moved from being practiced by beggars to children, and it's now a time when kids get to rule the streets and are given a chance to run wild themselves. More to the point, Samhain and Halloween are truly subversive against death itself. You need look no further than the Celtic understanding of the fairies, who actually were very unlike who we think of with Disney's Tinkerbell today. The fairies for the Celts were sinister, vengeful, and honestly pretty creepy. They were blamed for causing a poor harvest or for stealing children. You might be familiar with the myth of changelings, as they're called. A fairy who was essentially left called a changeling in the place of a child who was stolen by the fairies. This was an explanation offered in the case that a child died, believing that the alive, living child was still living off with the fairies and that the changeling left behind wasn't the real child. Fairies were known to cause trouble and meddle with the world, especially when they could cross over the veil between the seen and unseen at its thinnest. And so the Celts dressed up as animals and monsters to scare and ward off these fairies with their masks and deceptive outfits, much like we do today. Samhain itself was a celebration of life in the face of death. In the closing of the harvest, with the nights lengthening and the colder months approaching, Samhain was a turning to the new year, to the end of harvest yields, but also the promise of renewed life and regeneration. So what is this all about with ghosts and goblins, with vampires, werewolves, and ghouls? Yes, even wizards, right? In the end, the Celts feared death just like we do today. They too lived in an unpredictable and changing world where the chasm between life and death can sometimes feel insurmountable. Halloween helps us to challenge the dominion of death over our lives. Yes, while it's true that death does come for us all, at Halloween's core is that death does not have the final say. This is a time when we can confront, even poke fun at some of our greatest fears, poking fun even and finding joy even with death itself. It's also a time when we remind ourselves of our ancestors, of our loved ones who have gone before us, but who we nevertheless remember, and whom some of us believe even return to us again this time of year. In truth, whether we believe in the veil between the worlds, whether we know if a place like Halloween Town is even really possible, we all know that our loved ones are never really gone forever. They live on in our hearts. We are reminded of their small touches each time we stop to notice them. Our reading from Starhawk says it well. Death is no barrier to love, and every ending brings a new beginning. In this time when the veil grows thin, I invite you to notice the visits of your loved ones who you are holding close this time of year. See if you can find something in an interaction, a thought, a memory, or experience that brings them back vividly to be with you. As challenging as death is, death never has the final say over life. We, the living, always find ways to recall, to remember, to share the familiar stories, and even laugh in death's face once more. May your loved one draw close to you in this liminal season, and like as in Halloween Town, may you find ways to notice them each and every day of the year, all year round. We need not wait for October 31st to remember those who have passed on and those who have gone before. And so I say, may it be so, amen. And because I am Harry Potter today, I'll say, mischief managed. We'll hear now our closing song, All Souls Night, as Renee will sing for us. And if you would like to sing along, the lyrics are also, or I guess Renee will not sing with us, it's a video. But the video also has the lyrics inside, so if you'd like to sing along, we'll invite you to remain seated and sing along.
As we extinguish our chalice, let us hold in our hearts the warm memories of our recently departed loved ones and gratitude for the sacrifices and wisdom of our ancestors.
I'm so excited seeing so many costumes right outside the door there. In the spirit of covenant, community, and commitment, in our remembrance of those who have gone before, may we be made ready to serve one another and to create the world that we so desperately dream of. Go in peace all, may it be so, and amen. I have two very quick, short announcements, and then we'll get to the best part that we saved for last. I have an announcement that Safe Harbor starts next Saturday for those of us volunteering to help. We still have 2 slots open that we need to fill. So if you haven't yet had a chance to sign up, feel free to look in the flash for more information on how to do that. And then also an announcement about the auction that's coming up on November 19th. Make sure that you mark your calendars and stay tuned for some of the really exciting and cool options that are going to be offered up. So you don't want to miss it. It'll be a lot of fun. And now, we invite those of you who actually have come in costume. I see that we have some of our younger friends that are outside ready to go. We're going to invite you to rise and join in our postlude costume parade with the Monster Mash. And following our service today, UUCGT's Program Council invites you to enjoy a soup lunch and also a reception for our newest member, Eddie, who has joined us today. So let's welcome all of our creatures and characters and creations. And all of those that you are here, we'll follow this parade out after we're done to our soup lunch, and we hope that you'll stay and enjoy.